Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting preview for this week's Genesis Scottish Open. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your exposure. With first off, a look at my modeling and what I'm looking for in my plays this week, and then afterwards we'll go through some of my top pieces of exposure, my DFS core plays, value plays as well, to help you save some salary, and a few outright bets and placements that I'm looking to add to my portfolio. So by the end, you'll have a pretty good taste of what to expect in your research. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. We'll be playing at the Renaissance Club this week, which is a great hybrid style golf course, which mixes your wide open TPC kind of setups that we see on the PGA Tour and that link style setup that we get for the Open Championship next week. So there's a reason why we play it right before that next major championship, and it also gives a variety of different players a chance to get the job done, because of the more wide open Parkland style holes, they favor that American bomber style. But when we get close to the coast, you get some of those dunes and all those slopes on the fairways. That starts to favor your DP World Tour guys that see that a lot more often. So whether you're a PGA Tour regular or one of the guys that's coming over from the Euro Tour, all of them are going to be viable for my player pool. But in terms of key stats and what we're honing in on, approach play always going to be at number one. And because this is a combined field, I'm mostly looking at approach play with the shots gained metrics, not so much the proximity buckets that a lot of times we talk through, because on the DP World Tour, they don't have the same kind of stat keeping. So just try and keep everyone on an even playing field. That's why I'm choosing to go that direction. Off the tee, it is a wide open golf course. You do have some rough out there, but historically this has been a little bit more about bombing the ball than keeping the ball in the fairway. Link style golf course is more about accuracy though, so that's why it's not going to be a massive factor, me adding on that driving distance. Par 5 scoring though is something I want to point out. It's a par 70, but you do have 3 par 5s in play, also 5 par 3s, so a little bit atypical there, so adding emphasis for that reason. The shots gained putting setup, you've got fescue green, so if you want to add anything on top of form, I think that's the way to go. Around the green can't be ignored, particularly if you want to get up and down on the par 5s or the 1 or 2 potentially drivable par 4s. And then for comp course history, I don't think there's a lot of PGA Tour setups that are going to be similar to this week outside of this golf course itself. But if you want to look at some of the Open Championship setups in that link style of golf, that's going to be for half the holes around here. I think half of it's wide open Parkland, half of it is what you'd see next week at, a Portrush, for example. And those are the kind of stats that I'm looking for in my modeling. So a very fair course. I don't think you have to eliminate anyone based on whether they hit the ball long or short off the tee, or even based on whether they're more of an approach player or a short game player. You've seen a lot of different types of guys get it done around here, which makes it wide open from the outright perspective. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the kind of players that I'll be getting over the field on this week, and to give you an idea of perhaps a few to add to your own portfolio. First up, we've got ourselves Collin Morikawa at $9,600. So in DFS, I think that's a very soft price tag. Easy to start there and perhaps even throw in a Scotty Scheffler or a Rory too. But at plus 2,500 to win, I think he's got upside to get into the winner's circle. And he's started to get a lot closer over the last month or so. Top 5, top 10 finishes, and the ball striking stats are getting back to elite level stuff. So let's start there. The ball striking over the last 24 rounds, gaining over a stroke per round, which outside of Scotty Scheffler is one of the better numbers we have at the top of the board. Last 12 measured rounds as well gets even better for Collin. So I think that's where you're going to see him popping in models this week, is more over the last 12 or maybe 16, 18 round sample sizes. And over that stretch, gaining just under 2 strokes gained per round with the ball striking. So you're going to be hard pressed. In fact, you're not going to find anyone towards the top that is gaining that much to the field. And on top of that, the fescue surface has been unbelievably favorable for Collin. In fact, on top of just winning the Open Championship on the surface, he's got a pretty good course history around here as well, and the putter has cooperated. In particular, it cooperated last year at this golf course, so he had that T4 finish, and that was despite not even having his fastball with his ball striking stats. And I would say this time around, given the familiarity on the surface, by the way, at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, he nearly won. He top 10'd there despite losing a whole bunch of strokes putting. If he's even a neutral with the flat stick, that's probably getting into contention. And if he gains, God forbid, 1 stroke per round, like his baseline's been on it, then book it. He could be running out there to a 2 or 3 stroke victory. So I love Collin this week. I'm extremely bullish on his chances. A lot of it comes down to that putting on fescue driving him to success. If he has a down week with the putter again, it might be that top 10, top 20, which I would say at $9,600 isn't the worst outcome. If we get, a sour putting performance, which tends to happen a lot from Collin Morikawa, your floor at $9,600 is so much higher than a lot of the other players around him. So I love him for that reason in DFS. I'd say especially in single entries, those kind of formats, I think he's an even better DFS DFS play on a week like this. Large field GPPs, you could argue that he lacks a little bit of that top end upside, but I would counter with the fescue stats, giving him that upside once again. If it was a golf course or the type of grass where he only gained, maybe 0.1, 0.2 strokes per round, I would maybe tend to agree with you there, but this is the kind of surface where he's by far, and it's not even close, by far his best self. So give me some Colin at $9,600. It took him for a pretty hefty outright at 25-1. Next up, we've got ourselves Matt Fitzpatrick, who is $8,800 in DFS this week, and I do think it will be popular, but it'll be popular for good reason. Just like Collin Morikawa, his ball striking lately has started to really come into form. So let's look at the last 24 rounds first, zoom out over the last few months. Matt Fitzpatrick gaining about a half a stroke per round in the ball striking categories, but also very consistent, very impressive there as well, gaining across all 4 stat categories into the green. And then if we zoom in on the last 12 measured rounds, just like Colin, the shots gains get even better. He's gaining over 0.75 shots gained to ball striking per round. In fact, almost 0.8 shots gained to ball striking per round, actually a little bit over 0.8 shots gained ball striking per round. And the short game is still just as stout. And just like Collin Morikawa as well, on this surface, he is a massive gainer on it. Let's get that glitch off the screen, but you can see gaining about 1.2 shots gained per round on that fescue surface. And at 40-1, I thought he was even worthy of adding for an outright, because at the Rocket Mortgage, the last time he had a top finish, it was everything but the putter that was cooperating. And if you take a look at his results to start 2025, the putter was by far the best portion of his game. In fact, he was a top 5, top 10 putter on the PGA Tour for most of the year. And recently, he's dropped a little bit down. He's closer to like the top 25 now in the shots gained putting stats. But just like Colin, you put him on this fescue that he is extremely familiar with, having played on the DP World Tour for years before coming to the PGA Tour side, and it could be a recipe for a ceiling week. So at $8,800, I'm going to be eating that chalk in my lineups. I know that I'm going to have 4 or 5 other spots to differentiate myself. And just like Colin too, I don't think that he'll be overlooked. I think that Tommy's going to be relatively popular too. He's had a really good track record around this course, and of course is coming off the near win his last time out. Collin Morikawa, great form too. He'll probably get some steam even despite Tommy taking away that attention. Matt Fitzpatrick might be by far the most popular player in this range. And even with that, I'm okay with playing him because you have so many other spots to get that differentiation. And if I'm going to project him so much better than the other players around him, then maybe he's worth taking at that sort of an ownership number. And if we take a look at the event history, you'll see that it's been solid for Matt Fitzpatrick too. T39, at least he made the cut last year, did have that cut 2 years ago, but then had that T6 finish 3 years ago, the first time that they played here. And that was the year when it was a lot windier than the last 2 iterations. That was when it played 1.4 over par. And this time around, it's early in the week, so we don't have any, definitive weather forecast, but it's looking like it's going to be pretty windy. So I would say that that plays to Matt Fitzpatrick's advantage. You like to play him when it's more of grinded out conditions than it is birdie fest sort of conditions. So 40-1 also took a pretty hefty outright bet there. So whether it's in DFS or from the outright angle, a couple players that I'll be getting over the field on. And before we talk about our value plays, 2 more options that I'll give you guys for some of your exposure. I'm just going to give you a reminder of how to find these spreadsheets for yourself. So everything that's blacked out, of course, can be found on my Patreon page. On there, I have my entire player pool, every single bet that I get to this week, as well as all the research and modeling that you see on these spreadsheets to help you out with your process. So for example, we've got the recent form tab, event history tab to show you how they played at the Renaissance Club, shots gained metrics over the last 24, last 12 measured rounds, and all the exact model weightings that we have here towards the right side. So everything that's blacked out is, of course, completely uncensored over there, and you can find a link to that in the description of the video to give you access to all that information. So if you want to support the channel, you guys want to get my take on every single player that is teeing it up, make sure to check out the link down below. But next up, we've got Thurston Lawrence as our first value play, and he's $7,200, which I would say is way too cheap considering how he's played over the last few months. And I don't have a placement board on Hard Rock Bet yet, so they don't have like the top 5, top 10, top 20 odds up, but I'm looking for a top 5, top 10 on him because when Thurston Lawrence plays well, he tends to get in contention in these events, and event history is a little hit or miss on him. He's not had the best course history around here. In fact, he's gone cut, and then that top 25 finish, which is a little bit closer for what we're looking for, but last year at the Open Championship and at other link-style golf courses, whether it's Opens or on the DP World Tour playing similar style of golf golf courses to what we're going to have this week. Thurston Lawrence has a lot of his top 5, top 10s, and even wins at these style of events. So that's the kind of course fit angle that I'm leaning into here. And over the last 12, even last 24 measured rounds, Thurston Lawrence has started to look like his old self. And for a lot of 2025, he was playing piss poor golf. I mean, I'm sure he would admit it himself that he was a shell of his former self, but he grinded, he kept at it, right? He didn't get too down on himself, and now he's starting to show his true potential. He's gaining about a half a stroke per round over his last 24 rounds with the ball striking categories, gaining about 0.6 strokes per round with the putter, which is kind of his go-to stat profile. He's going to gain ball striking, he's going to gain putting. Not always the best short game player, but it's okay at this course. It's not, a number 1, 2, or 3 key stat. And then if we go to the last 12 measured rounds, you're going to see the form really start to come around. So over that sample size, gaining close to 0.7 shots gained ball striking per round, gaining around the green, which is great to see. He's not always a gainer in that category, but lately has made it a strength, and still gaining 0.6 strokes putting per round. So the form has gotten a lot more solid. He's been in major championship fields. You saw him in contention for quite some time. And then even at some of the easier events like we've had for the last few weeks. So, no matter what kind of golf course, what kind of conditions, easy, hard, he's done it at all those different events lately, which I think really makes him, it shows that the form's legit, right? It's not just like a couple week, pop where he's going out there like, oh, he's going to have like some decent form for a month or so. This is looking like Thurston Lawrence returning to his former form, which on the DP World Tour, guys, he was the number 1 player other than Rory last year. So, you compare him to some of the other DP World Tour guys that we've seen do solid on the PGA Tour, like Victor Perez, even Robert McIntyre, who won this event and finished second the year before that. Thurston Lawrence was arguably better than all of those players. So I don't think that this is a blip on the radar. I think this is a sign of things to come over the next few years. And that's why I'll take him for the top 5, top 10, because when he gets there, he tends to get there with the top 5, top 10, not so much like those top 25 finishes. So I think he's a great DFS play, a great GPP play if you're in some of the larger field contests, and the kind of guy that I'll be getting over the field on. And lastly is my favorite play of the week. And I knew he was going to be in my exposure before I saw the pricing, before I looked at my modeling, and I'm a massive fan of this kid's game, and this is Martin Couvra. And this is just one example of the kind of DP World Tour player that I'm going to be trying to get early to. And you guys, maybe you don't know this, I guess I'll just say it now. I'm a massive fan of the DP World Tour. I tend to watch it as much as possible. Maybe not every single event that they have, but at the very least, I watch Saturday, Sunday for every single event. And Martin Couvra, if you haven't been watching the DP World Tour, he's got a win over there, and he's been in contention seemingly every single week. He's a young stud. A lot of people are comparing him to Brooks Koepka. He's got the approach play that is just better than everyone else that is teeing it up against. And in my modeling, sure, it's a little biased because it's easier to gain strokes on the DP World Tour. He's my number 7 ranked player in the field, and frankly, I can't argue against it because I think he's an absolute stud. So if we go to the last 12 measured rounds, we show you the form heading in, you'll see that he's playing some really solid golf. He's gaining 0.2 strokes per round off the tee. He's not really a bomber. He's slightly above average with the distance, though, so that's why he gains strokes to the field on the DP World Tour. But his calling card, as I said, is the iron play, gaining just under a stroke per round. And you may say, like, oh, this is a last 12-round thing, right? He's just the hot commodity on the DP World Tour. Well, you'd be incorrect. In fact, his form over the last 24 rounds is even better than that last 12-round sample size, gaining 2 strokes per round, just like my guy Christopher Ryan is. But the difference is that Couvra does it with his iron play, and Ryan does it with the fact that he makes a whole bunch of 20, 30 footers. And I'll be playing both of them in my lineups. I have Ryan in my player pool already as well. But Martin Couvra is the sort of player that I could see being a top 10 player on the PGA Tour someday. And you've heard that from people, that he's got that kind of potential. A lot of players pointing him out as a potential superstar, not just on the DP World Tour side, but also on this side of the pond. So at $6,900, I'm not sure if I'm going to bet him outright this week or anything, or even like the top 5, top 10. But for a top 10, top 20 at $6,900, that's starting to get close to what we need to get there for a DFS play. And then I think realistically at this stage of his career, when he's so young and so raw at this point, that's probably the best bet for our money. And the odds should be favorable. Again, I don't have them on Hard Rock Bet yet. Same thing with the T-Loft, top 5, top 10. We'll have to see what I can get compared to the other books. But if it's remotely the same kind of line, or maybe even a slightly better line than I can line shop shop elsewhere, I'm going to be adding in my exposure for myself. And of course, guys, the Patreon page is where you can find all of my exposure for this week. All right, guys, like Couvra, T-Law, as I add my bets there, that'll be updated on the Patreon sheet. But there's a bunch of guys already on my Patreon page, just like Martin Couvra, that I'm playing for my DFS lineups this week. So, if you're trying to see exactly who I'm trying to be early on, some of the guys I've been scouting over the last 3-4 months that are studs on that side of the pond, the Patreon page is the place to find all of that. But that's all for the plays this week. Alrighty, guys, that's all I've got for this week's DFS and betting preview. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Also subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content to come, including our live streams for rounds 2 through 4 showdown. Those will be on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe over there as well. And for our prop live streams for rounds 1 through 4, that'll be starting Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. That'll be for our round 1 exposure, but rounds 2 through 4, we'll also be covering that throughout the weekend too. So subscribe so you guys don't miss any of those when it drops. Also, our content for every single event that we have on the PGA Tour schedule, including the Open Championship at Royal Portrush, which I'm thoroughly looking forward to. Thoroughly looking forward to this field as well, getting to see some of my DP World Tour low-owned studs that we can get to on our lineups. Best of luck with everything that you guys are getting to. Make sure to check out the Patreon page for all my content this week, and let's have ourselves a Scottish Open.